I'd like to talk about a few things that are a continuation of my last video, the one on enlightenment. I mean, the term enlightenment is a general enough one. The way I use it, I'm not referring to anything negative with it. I'm referring to establishing a connection with the divine. I'm referring to discovering certain truths about oneself and about the universe and about the nature of God. Truths that help you see life in a new way. They light your way, so to speak. And I started to talk about certain things that people were doing awfully wrong on their path to enlightenment in my previous video. And I'd like to continue along the same theme and to talk about a few more self-limiting beliefs that are quite common, and that, by the very meaning of the phrase self-limiting belief, helps you understand how there are obstacles in your way to a better understanding of everything. So, in some of the things that I look at these days, particularly where the concept of sacred geometry is discussed, the practice is to start explaining away the nature of God with geometry, to the point where I hear some people say that God is a geometric shape that somehow holds information, and is self-propagating, fractalizing to the point where it is creating the universe that we know of. And while it is interesting to explore that concept and to think of the universe as a fractal of increasingly complex geometric shapes that somehow, in the end, define us as we know ourselves, it's terribly limiting to think of God as a geometric shape, because what it boils down to is just that. And then these people also tend to explain away the concept of celestial beings with geometric shapes. And I find it insulting to God, to this divinity that created all of us, to somehow explain that being away by just saying, oh, it's a geometric shape, holds information, fractalizes, blah, blah, blah. And it's not as if it's limiting God's power or it's limiting God's nature in any sort of way. What it is limiting is your own understanding of God. And just to be clear, as I try to be clear in every video, I'm not talking in any way, shape, or form about the religious understanding of God. My understanding of God and the religious understanding of God are two very different things. And I've explained that in previous videos, so watch those. I don't want to repeat myself ad nauseum here. But that particular understanding of God as the geometric shape and of the celestial beings as more geometric shapes is terribly limiting for you if you tend to explain it in that sense. So just be aware of that. If it helps you appreciate God on another level, to think about the sacred geometry behind some of the shapes that you see, great. But it's foolishness to somehow assume that a being that is so far beyond our understanding can somehow be reduced to a geometric shape. It's just I wouldn't call it insanity, but it is stupidity. Another self-limiting belief, is, and I see this a lot these days, is this negation of the individuation of the soul. Let me explain what I mean by that. Because I don't, at least from my knowledge, I haven't seen other people talking about this. Instead, I keep seeing them push this idiocy. And the teaching that's being pushed is that somehow we are all one. We're all one, we're part of God, and we're just different iterations of God. And one of the drawings that I saw explaining this was the being, God or the universe, whatever, sitting inside a sphere, poking his fingers out through the surface of the sphere to the point where he only had the tips of the fingers poking out, like, 5 tips. Somebody drew smiley faces on them, and the fingers were looking at each other and going, ha ha ha, right? Chuckling, not knowing what to make of each other. And God was sitting there, like this, inside the sphere with his hand poking out. And that somehow explains the concept of the universe and of the existence of beings and of souls. I find this is insanity as far as I'm concerned. This is nuts. Just nuts. Now, let me explain what I mean by the individuation of the soul. Yes, every soul was part of God, is on some level, because you cannot take God away from God, right? So every one of our souls individuated or broke off from God. It is part of that great consciousness, or was part of that great consciousness. Yes, that is true. Very much true. The source is the source, is the source. But the idea that somehow our individualities which are the very essence of what we are as beings in this universe, in this galaxy, solar system, planet, dimension, density, whatever the heck, however you want to define it. The idea that somehow our individuality counts for nothing and it should be negated. And the idea that somehow this great gift of the soul that we have counts for nothing and should be negated because it is really just part of one big thing is like spitting in the face of God. Because the very concept behind creating beings that have individual souls that break off from God and experience everything in separation from God, that is at the very basis of life in the universe. That is the gift that was given to us by the Source. The possibility of existing separate from the Source, with our own souls, with our own energies, as separate beings, separate entities in little worlds and subworlds created by God and the other celestial beings. That's the gift. We're supposed to be experiencing these things separately. We have individuated for that very reason, this separate experience, this individual experience. Now, what am I advocating for when I talk about this enlightenment stuff, this direct connection? I'm not talking about breaking this individuation which lies at our very core. I'm talking about establishing a better connection to the Source so that we may get guidance, so that we may get reassurance, so that we may feel our origin, so that we may live better lives. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not... It's just... I see this everywhere. I see this sort of teaching everywhere where they're trying to tell people you're all just one, and it doesn't matter really what you think. It doesn't matter what you are as an individual. You're just one. So the sooner you come to that realization, the better it's going to be for you. And it's incredible folly. It's spitting in the face of the Source when you say that. But if you think about that in other concepts, especially in light of what's going on in the world now, you begin to look at the basic idea behind this. Oh, you don't matter, you don't really even have a soul, you're just part of something bigger, deal with it. Where do we find that same concept? We find it in this sickening New World Order that's being pushed on us. Slowly but surely being pushed on us. Where they're telling us that we don't matter, we're just part of one big world. Our race doesn't matter, our ethnicity doesn't matter, our nationality doesn't matter, our colors don't matter. I'm not saying that one color is less than the other. I'm saying each color should be proud of who they are and should be proud of their heritage and should love their own skin and should have respect for the other colors and ethnicities and such. But these things get so twisted in this sick propaganda that's being pushed all around. So we're being told those things, and at the same time we're being told, you'll have nothing soon enough anyway. You'll own nothing and you'll be happy. And I find that to sound eerily similar to this teaching that says you don't even have a soul, you're just part of something bigger, you have nothing, just enjoy the unity. And it's disgusting to me. And it is a self-limiting belief. Whether you want to admit it or not, the moment you start negating your own individuality, you lose part of yourself. The idea is not to take your ego and throw it in the mud behind you and squash it with the heel of your shoe and say, I have no more ego. Now I can move forward. I'm a better human being. No. The idea is to embrace that individuality, that ego of yours, form a better connection to the divine, and integrate that different thread that is you into the greater fabric of the universe. That is how you achieve enlightenment. That is how you ascend. You don't tear anything away from the very fabric of your being. You don't negate anything. The very idea of humanity, I want this to be very clear to you, and I've said it in the past as well, the very idea of humanity here on earth relies on you being individual beings, sovereign, equal, with freedom from each and every one of you, and with the concept of private property, of ownership, of stewardship of the things that you own. That is the very essence of what it means to be a human being on earth. Yes, there are other realities on other planets where there are hive minds, where the idea of private property is unknown, where everything is held in common, but that is not the way the earth was created. I want you to get this. It's very important as we move forward. The idea of owning something, of having something in this world, is directly tied to the idea of individuality, of having a separate and yet greater part of the fabric of the universe, id, identity. It's very, very important that you get this. This is the truth. If you negate this and you move forward with this insanity that's being pushed on you, it's not going to end well for you. It cannot, because human beings were not made to be enslaved. Human beings were not made to be part of a stupid hive mind. Human beings were not made to own nothing. Human beings were made to be free, sovereign, happy in their ownership of things, taking good care of them, living good lives along with their families, providing for them, working, appreciating what they have, appreciating nature, appreciating the planet that they live on, appreciating the things that make them different from the others, such as the color of their skin, such as their nationality, such as their heritage. All of these things are part of the very fabric of what each human being is. And when we come together as nations and form a new world based on respect for every other nation, based on respect for the color and creed of all the other beings on earth, that's when we'll have achieved heaven on earth. Not in any other way, not with this transhumanist corruption and butchery of the biology of human beings, not with this transgender corruption and butchery of the biology of human beings, not with any of the things that make you deny who you are. Do you understand? Do you understand? Do you understand that this stuff does not come from me? Not me, Raoul, a human being. This, what you see here, does not come from this. It comes from the very core of the universe, these things that I'm telling you. And you can choose to laugh, you can choose to deny it. But this is the goddamn truth for Earth, for human beings. Okay. Let's go on. Another teaching that I've heard, well, teaching it's a terrible name for something that corrupts our understanding of the divine and of the order of the universe. It's not a teaching. It's used toilet paper. That's what it really is. It's very much used toilet paper. Is that we must each be open to completely changing our minds on absolutely everything, all the time. We must be like water. We must be, there are many ways of explaining this to you that make it sound cool. And the truth is that as humans, frankly, as beings in the universe, I think this applies across the board. We must each have certain rock-solid beliefs that we rely on. They are our foundation, the foundation that anchors us in who we are, and it's a foundation that we can build upon in order to understand the universe and establish a connection to the source and live better lives. And it's the moment that you start chipping away at those rock-solid beliefs is the moment that you undermine yourself, and you will end up crashing to the ground. So, what are some of those beliefs or truths for humans? Those are the very same beliefs or truths that I'm trying to discover for myself, that I've been trying to discover ever since I began this journey. And I believe one of the truths is our biology. You cannot deny that humans have two sexes. That's it. The exceptions prove that rule. Humans have two sexes. These two sexes, these two genders, are supposed to be with each other. Now, I'm still on the fence about what happens when someone is attracted to somebody of another gender. I don't know. What I do know is that I've been tormented by homosexuals throughout my life who just did not want to understand that I was straight, could not process that truth. They kept harassing me. They kept trying to be my friends only so they could hit on me and make sexual propositions to me. And so I'm fed up with that shit. I'm absolutely fed up with that. And I don't have a lot of sympathy for people who cannot understand this biological truth. Yeah, but I'm still willing to respect someone who respects me, no matter what they believe. I'm still willing to do that, but not a lot of patience. That patience has run out. So, that is one of the truths, I believe. The other truth is what I've just talked about, the individuation of the soul. I've just explained it, so I don't need to go into further detail. And I've just explained the other truths as well, such as the idea that we're supposed to be free, sovereign, have private property, live as nations that respect each other, as races, as ethnicities that respect each other, on a united earth, but not a one-world government. Most definitely not a one-world government. Most definitely not a one-world anything. That is unfortunately a corruption of the human ideals. And I could perhaps make another video where I talk about how the world should be run, how we could have a very, very good arrangement here on Earth. But I'll leave that for another video. You've got to ask me and you've got to remind me if I forget to make that video. Now, perhaps tied in with my lovely simile about used toilet paper that I mentioned before. You know how I talked about tantric sex in my previous video? This one is particularly distasteful to me, and yet it's practiced. It's practiced behind closed doors as a method of reaching enlightenment. And it's so unbelievably disgusting. And it is the practice of coprophagy. I'm not sure if I pronounced that right. Is it coprophagy, coprophagy, whatever? It's a practice of eating excrement, feces. It is absolutely disgusting, and yet it happens. Maybe you've maybe you've heard or read of somebody called Aleister Crowley, who was someone who practiced in the occult and wrote books on the subject. He was also a Freemason. And he practiced this. Not only he practiced it, but his disciples ended up eating his excrements and his urine, thinking it would help them on their path to enlightenment. And frankly, having looked at photos of the guy, I can tell you that all that his disciples got was intestinal parasites from doing that. The guy was seriously ill, had all sorts of ailments, so he was full of parasites. But yeah, and you would think that that kind of stupid practice stopped with him, but no. It's being practiced right now by the disciples of the Dalai Lama. They're lining up permanently. There's like a waiting list of people that consume his excrement and urine, thinking it helps them on their path to enlightenment. And it's absolutely insane to think that that happens. I mean, there is no enlightenment to be gotten from consuming waste, offal. There is none whatsoever. I just want to make it clear to you. None whatsoever. Look at the kinds of insects that eat offal, right? You have dung beetles, you have all kinds of larvae, you have dogs that sometimes eat excrement. Really, I mean, the human being was created to be orders of magnitude above these beings in terms of thinking, in terms of powers, in terms of mind, in terms of soul, just about anything, in terms of bodily functioning, in terms of anything, the human being is above them. And yet, human beings descend to their level by consuming offal. So disgusting. There is no human being, no any kind of being, anywhere in the universe who is so highly ascended that consuming their excrement will get you any kind of enlightenment whatsoever. No one exists. This is not part of the plan. This is definitely not part. It boggles my mind that people do this. especially for a nullity like the Dalai Lama. Because I've read the guy's books. I've read one of his books and I've looked through his other books, and the time I spent reading his one book was enough for me. Because it's the most recycled, feel-good, sound-good shit I've read. It's utter bullshit. Probably ghost-written by one of his disciples. The guy does not have an original bone in his body. There's nothing to be gained from his teachings. And yet people eat his shit. This is how insane the human race has become. So, let's move on. Another self-limiting belief is the over-reliance on rituals. And I get that rituals play a role in helping one get one in a state of mind that is better suited to receiving guidance or wisdom or understanding certain things. But rituals in and of themselves, and I don't care whether they're religious, whether they're personal, whether they're magical, it does not matter. Rituals by themselves do nothing if they do not achieve their purpose of getting you in that higher state or that better state where you can actually understand certain things better or feel closer to God. Thinking that you're just going through a ritual mechanically, automatically, and thinking that it'll somehow do something for you is wrong thinking. It simply will not. So a ritual no longer gets you in that sweet spot, in that frame of mind where you feel that you can have that better connection to the divine, or have that better connection to your higher self and do something with that better connection, then the ritual is meaningless. It's a waste of time. Keep that in mind. Another self-limiting belief is the placing of others above you. Whether this is a priest or a pastor or the government or aliens, anybody, any one being, any group of beings, it doesn't matter. Royalty, placing anybody above you automatically limits your own development. There is to be no one above you and no one between you and the source. No one. It is particularly foolish to place another human being above you, because human beings are fallible. They're subject to the very same problems that you have: greed, lust, gluttony, you name it, they've got it. And the higher a human being is placed above someone else, and the more power and money they're given, the more corrupt they become. And the harder it is to get him off that throne that you placed him on. The harder it becomes for you to extract yourself from that subservient relationship. Don't do it. Don't ever do it. And I particularly find people nowadays looking to these more advanced alien races and thinking that, oh, they're going to come, we're going to have disclosure, we're going to establish contact with them, and they're going to save us. They're going to place them in a position of gods once more, which is what's happened in the past when they visited. They visited, and the human beings thought, wow, these beings fly, they come from the sky, they can do things I can't do, they must be gods. Let's treat them like gods. And look at the wonderful history we've had on earth by doing that. Look at the misery heaped upon us. Because when they tired of playing our gods, they left, and they put in their stead human beings as kings. And look what a glorious time we've been having under these fucknuts. And in recent centuries, we've deposed the kings and we've put in place more people, governments. Oh, we'll take care of you. We'll take good care of you. Abso-fucking-lutely. Yeah, totally. Just give us, power over you. Just give us your money. I will abso-fucking-lutely take care of you. Oh yeah, look how lovely that's turned out. Isn't that great? Don't you just love the way the governments are taking good care of you now? Just, they love you, don't they? Well, you'll get more of that shit until you learn your lessons. So learn them quickly. Do your homework. Yeah. The biggest self-limiting belief, I think, and I'll end with this, is that the soul dies. That's the biggest. That is the biggest, because it induces so much fear in you. And fear stops you from developing. Fear freezes, destroys your connection to the source. Keeps you small, keeps you on your knees, knocks you down on your back, keeps you trembling, lets others take control of your life, of your destiny, of your finances, of your health. This idea that life is limited somehow, that this is all you have, this 50, 60, 70 years, 80 years, whatever you get to live, that's it. There's nothing more. The idea that some asshole can shoot you and it's over, or you dare stand up for your rights and you get executed and it's over, that idea is so self-limiting. And that's exactly why you're taught that concept. That's why you're taught to believe that way. That somehow this is it. And if you want to have any sort of afterlife, it depends on this so-called deity to whom sacrifices must be made, or to whom money must be given, or who requires that you go to church every certain day of the week. Doesn't matter what day. Every religion asks you differently. That you somehow must submit to the authority of priests or pastors or whatever. Or you must submit to your governments or else you die. You must do this and you must do that or else it's over. That's the biggest self-limiting belief I can think of. Because, and I'm sure you probably know this if you're watching my videos, I don't think anybody watches my videos going, oh yeah, that's totally right. There's no more life after that. That's it. I don't think anybody does that with my videos. But yeah, obviously, the soul is immortal. If the soul is part of God, comes from God, how in the world can it die? If anybody can do regression hypnotherapy or regression therapy and readily access things from other lives they lived, things that can be provable in a lot of cases by just going back through history or through city archives and whatnot, how can the soul die? How can just this one life be it? It's nonsense. It's nonsense. So, the soul is immortal. This life is just one of the many experiences that you have. The purpose of life is experience. It is development. It's growth. It's understanding. And who's in charge of your ship? It's you. You're the one deciding where you go. You're the one deciding how long you stay there. And this is why I talked in previous videos about the ascension of the earth into a higher density, and the fact that some of the soul contracts of the people, of a lot of people on earth who are no longer compatible with this new reality, will be ending. It's not like anybody is going to stay there and shred their soul contracts. Soul contracts aren't on paper. It's silly. But at the soul level, they'll decide that, oh, my time here is over. I no longer fit in here. So, and you go somewhere else. Or, and you go somewhere else. Because there is that place too. So if you've been a bad boy or a bad girl, yeah, you're going to have a lot of fun where you're going. Yeah. Okay, if you've made it this far, thanks for watching. Till next time.